Hi, welcome to Ultra Recap. After drinking sacred herbal tea, the young prince becomes the greatest warrior of his people, and needs to free Wakanda from the hand of a tyrannical king. Today we will recap the story of the 2018 movie Black Panther. Millions of years ago, a meteorite composed of vibranium, the most powerful element in the universe, struck the African continent, affecting plant life around that area. When the first humans appeared in those lands, 5 tribes settled there and called the place Wakanda. These tribes lived in constant war with each other, until the day the shaman warrior saw a vision from the tigress gods that led him to the heartgrass. After he ate the herb, she provided him with superhuman strength, speed, and connected instincts. Then he became king and the first Black Panther, and his mission was to protect Wakanda. 4 tribes agreed to live under the king, but the Jabari tribe isolated themselves in the mountains. Over time, the people of Wakanda used vibranium to develop more advanced technology than any other nation. But while Wakanda flourished, the rest of the world plunged into chaos. To keep the vibranium safe, the inhabitants of Wakanda hid in such a way that they managed to hide the truth of their power from the world. In Auckland in 1992, some teenagers played basketball on the court next to the building where they lived. Suddenly a luminous plane appears above the clouds, in an apartment, while Prince Njobu and his partner James are plotting a robbery when they hear someone knocking on the door. Upon opening the door, they find 2 women with strange clothes and spears in their hands entering the house and ordering Njobu to identify himself. He identifies himself as the brother of T'Chaka, the current king of Wakanda. To prove he is telling the truth, it shows a blue tattoo hidden on his lower lip. All the sons of this nation have this sign. At that moment King T'Chaka appears. After hugging his brother, he tells him that Wakanda was attacked recently and a man named Ulysses Chloe stole a quarter ton of vibranium and detonated a bomb on the Wakanda border, and fled. He took many lives, but the strange thing is that he knows where the vibranium is. This means that he has a spy inside who helped him break through the barrier, so he looks at his brother and asks why he betrayed his people. Njobu claims he did not. Then T'Chaka asks James to reveal his true identity and reveals that he is Zuri from Wakanda and was sent to spy on the prince. When the truth is revealed, and evidence of the crime is found, T'Chaka tells her brother to return home where he will face the council to find out his punishment. Minutes later, Eric and his friends see the plane leaving. 26 years later, King T'Chaka dies during an armed attack. Everyone expects his son T'Challa to succeed him as the new king. But before his coronation, the prince travels to the Sambisa forest on a mission to save his girlfriend Nakia from the hands of criminals who traffic in human beings. The Black Panther hides in the jungle while the smugglers take their weapons to defend against the attack. Nakia leaves the truck and helps T'Challa take out the criminals. After eliminating everyone, Nakia asks why T'Challa is ruining her mission because she's disguised as a spy. At that moment, T'Challa tells Nakia of his father's death and asks her to be by his side at the coronation. Before leaving, Nakia releases all the prisoners and tells them to go home. When they return to Wakanda, we see the unparalleled beauty of this place surrounded by mountains, contrary to what the rest of the world believes that Wakanda is a poor third world country. The truth is that they are the best on the planet and they have technologies that cannot be found anywhere else on Earth. Upon landing, they are greeted by Queen Ramonda and Princess Shuri, who tells him she has made some updates to his costume. Meanwhile, in London, Eric is visiting the Museum of Britain when a female employee approaches him. He showed her one of the artifacts, and told her that it had been stolen from Wakanda. Suddenly the woman falls. When Eric calls for help, 2 men disguised as paramedics appear with a stretcher. Then the 2 men shoot the security guards while a woman on their team hacks the cameras so her partners can finish the robbery without the police showing up. Ulysses uses his mechanical hand to break the glass and take the artifact. Before leaving, Eric steals a mask from the museum and they return to the ambulance where he celebrates the success of the mission with his girlfriend. The next day the 4 tribes gather at the waterfall to watch the coronation ceremonies. When Prince T'Challa arrived, Zuri offered him the drink that removes the power of the Black Panther from his body. This way the prince can fight fairly against whichever warrior he decides to challenge him for the throne. However, no competitor has come forward, and they accept T'Challa as their king. Suddenly M'Baku, the leader of the Jabari tribe, appears and decides to challenge the prince for the throne. During the fight, M'Baku grabs the prince with his spear and hits his head, but upon hearing his mother's support, the prince regains his strength and resists. Suddenly, the spear pierces the prince's chest but manages to pull it out and take control of his opponent. As he was about to eliminate him, the prince asked M'Baku to surrender, otherwise he will have to kill him because that is how the winner of the duel is determined. Then M'Baku surrenders, and the other tribes celebrate the victory of their new king, who has become known as the Black Panther. On that night, T'Challa must pass a final rite according to the tradition of his ancestors when he drinks hearty herb tea and berries in the sand. Then the new king will move to the ancestral isthmus. There he sees a tree full of Black Panthers, among them is his father, who transforms himself to talk to him. T'Challa hugs his father and asks him to teach him how to become a great king to protect Wakanda. T'Chaka tells him that he has to surround himself with people he trusts because he will face many adversities. When he wakes up, T'Challa feels so happy that he had the honor of seeing his father again. After a few days, while the king is walking in the city with Nakia, he asks her not to leave, but she tells him that she cannot live happily in this place knowing that there are people living in misery and without any kind of support and that he must help them, but T'Challa needs to keep her kingdom hidden from the rest of the world because that's how they've held out for centuries. After a while, the king goes to visit Wakabi who feeds rhinos, when he receives a call from Okoye requesting his presence in the castle. After gathering the council members, Okoye reveals that a Wakanda artifact was stolen from the British Museum by Ulysses who plans to sell it to an American buyer in South Korea, so this is the perfect opportunity to catch him and try him for his crimes. Before going on this mission, T'Challa visits his sister who gives him some devices to use while he is in Korea, including one with unlimited range. Finally, she introduces him the new Black Panther costume, which stores kinetic energy for later reuse. That night, the king arrives in Busan, Korea, accompanied by Micaiah and Okoye. When they enter the bar, the trio separates in order to find the buyer. T'Challa meets his old friend Ross who works for the CIA, then he discovers that Ross is the one who will buy the merchandise from Ulysses. At the same time, Ulysses arrives accompanied by a number of security guards, all armed to the teeth. Ross goes to him and asks his assistant to bring the bag full of diamonds in exchange for the stolen artifact. When Okoye is revealed, a gun battle erupts when T'Challa is forced to reveal his true identity. T'Challa managed to besiege Ulysses, but he was attacked with a very powerful weapon that throws the king away. Nakia and Okoye chase Ulysses, then T'Challa appears, whose sister helps him drive his car remotely. After a while, the hero managed to destroy the first car of the enemies. Meanwhile, Okoye uses her magnetic shoes to climb over the car and throws her spear at the enemies. With one hit she can destroy their car. After taking several shots, the Black Panther's new suit is filled with stored energy. The hero jumps into one of the enemy vehicles and unleashes all the accumulated energy to completely destroy the car. When Ulysses sees they are approaching him, he uses his mechanical arm to shoot a laser beam powerful enough to dismantle the viburnum car. Despite the attack, the warriors manage to get out unharmed and receive a ride from Agent Ross. Soon after, he destroys T'Challa's car also. During the explosion, the Black Panther jumped on the fugitive's car and tore off one of the wheels, causing a serious accident. Ulysses gets out of the car and attacks T'Challa, but his costume absorbs all the impact. Then the king manages to rip his mechanical arm off. During his interrogation, Ross asks Ulysses where he got this cannon arm from. The criminal tells him that his weapon is Wakanda technology made of vibranium and that's why it's so strong. Ross thought Wakanda it is a third world country and was surprised when he knew that they had such advanced technology. Then Ulysses denies that he stole all of the vibranium, claiming that what he stole represents only a drop in the sea of what they have. Meanwhile, Nakia looks at the security cameras and notices that they are not broadcasting live footage. She suspects they are being attacked and warns everyone. During the shooting, Ross jumps to save Nakia and ends up injured. Before leaving, Eric throws a grenade at them but the Black Panther jumps over it and manages to neutralize the explosion with his costume. He then tries to chase after them but is surprised when a special weapon from Wakanda is used to bring him down. While puzzled by watching his enemies flee, the king sees a ring belonging to the royal family of Wakanda hanging around the neck of the masked man. While Ross jumped in front of the bullet to save Nakia, he was injured in his spinal cord. Nakia tells them that they have to take him to Wakanda to save him. T'Challa thinks this is the best way to thank Ross for saving the woman he loves. While Shuri uses her technology to treat the American, the king receives a visit from Wakabi who, upon knowing of what happened with Ulysses, his confidence in the king shakes. Meanwhile, Ulysses takes Eric and the rest of the team onto a small plane that will have them leave the country. To force him to follow his orders, Eric shoots the pilot and points the gun at Ulysses, who holds Eric's girlfriend hostage believing this will help him survive, but Eric shoots his girlfriend and then pursues Ulysses. While trying to hide, he was shot in the stomach. When he is about to die, Ulysses says that Eric will never be able to enter Wakanda, but he is surprised to discover that his partner in crime has a blue tattoo on the underside of his mouth indicating that he is a descendant of Wakanda. At that time, Eric finished the work and used the plane to go to Africa. At the same time, T'Challa goes to the sacred garden to talk to Zuri. He asked him what had happened to his uncle N'Jobu, and his father told him that he had disappeared, and told him that he had seen a man in Korea wearing a ring identical to the one he has. Pressed by the king, Zuri says that N'Jobu took a group of warriors to America and T'Chaka put him there to spy on him. His uncle fell in love with an American woman and had a baby. All the suffering and diversity that the prince saw in that country made him become rebellious to his nation, so N'Jobu chose to betray his nation by helping Ulysses steal the vibranium. When he was informed that he would return to Wakanda to face the council, he was furious and drew a pistol on him. To save him, T'Chaka kills his brother, and the king tells Zuri to never talk about what happened, and then they leave N'Jobu's son Eric alone. The next morning, Eric appeared at the Wakanda border dragging the body of Ulysses and was greeted by W'Kabi and his men, who finally avenged his father's death. When Ross woke up, he couldn't believe he could walk after hitting his spine. He meets Shuri and introduces himself but finds the girl knows everything about him, and he likes the place and is happy with this level of technology. He asks what are those light panels around the train tracks. Shuri tells him they are sound stabilizers, because vibranium in its raw form is dangerous for transportation at high speeds, so she discovered a way to temporarily disable it. Suddenly the girl receives a call from Okoye informing her that a foreigner has crossed the barrier and entered the country. At this moment, T'Challa is sitting on a mountain edge next to Nakia and tells her what he discovered. He blames his father for leaving the child alone instead of taking him to be part of his people. Meanwhile, he receives a call from his sister asking him to come right away. Ross tells them that he knows Eric and that he is a former Marine who served in Afghanistan, where he killed hundreds of people. Eric arrives at the council accompanied by W'Kabi, where he reveals that he is the son of Prince N'Jobu who has been killed by his brother, so he also has royal blood and has the right to duel over the throne. Before the fight begins, the king is stripped of his power. Eric tells him he waited his whole life for this moment. He has many marks on his body for every person he killed. He did this as a training to kill the king. The fight begins and the king uses his shield to protect himself from his fierce cousin's attacks. After exchanging several blows, T'Challa managed to bring down his opponent. But Eric rises and attacks him again. The king's goal is to make his cousin give up the fight. Then Eric managed to stab the king in the stomach with a spear. When he was about to eliminate him, Zuri intervened and revealed that he was responsible for his father's death. Eric kills Zuri, then he carries T'Challa and throws him from the top of the waterfall. For the safety of the royal family, Nakia elopes with the queen and Shuri during the coronation of the new king. That night, Nakia meets Okoye and asks her for help to destroy Eric, but the warrior tells her that she is loyal to the throne of Wakanda, no matter who sits on it. Meanwhile, Eric performs a coronation ritual. After drinking herbal heart tea, he is sent to the ancestral isthmus where he sees his father. N'Jobu feels guilty about the person his son has become. Crying, he told him that he should have taken him to Wakanda when he had the chance. After taking Ross to the queen, Nakia has to do one last thing before she leaves. She goes to the sacred garden and steals one of the heart herbs. At that time, Eric wakes up and orders his servants to burn all herbs in the garden because he doesn't want any other king to have the powers of the Black Panther. After he sits on the throne, Eric orders to begin sending the vibranium to be used by the blacks scattered across the world to subdue their oppressors. In the mountains, the four of them walk towards the Jabari tribe where Nakia plans to give them the last bit of the heart-shaped herb. When they reach the cave, they informed M'Baku that a foreigner has become king and he is about to destroy Wakanda. When Nakia offered him the heart herb, he takes them to a secluded place where they find a big surprise in front of them, which is T'Challa, and the ice is the only thing keeping him alive. Where one of the fishermen of the Al-Jabri clan found him in a coma on the side of the river. The queen prepares the drink and gives it to her son. Minutes later, T'Challa wakes up bent on getting the crown back. Shuri hands her brother the Black Panther necklace. Then T'Challa asks for a moment alone with M'Baku. He thanks him for saving his life and the man claims he was paying off a debt. T'Challa asks the leader of Jabari to lend him some warriors to help her regain the throne, but M'Baku refuses to do so. T'Challa returns and demands a fight because there was no surrender and he is still alive, but Eric refuses to duel again and claims that he is now the king. And he orders his servants to send the ships containing equipment made of vibranium to different parts of the planet. At this point, Shuri had already arrived at the lab and she had Ross help her destroy the plane before those powerful weapons fell into the wrong hands. Ross pilots a warplane from a distance and his mission is to destroy the rest of the planes before they cross the border. To defend his current king, Wakabi leads his men into battle against T'Challa, but Okoye decides to support his former king and orders her warriors to confront Eric. A great war begins and the Black Panther must fight those who were once his allies. Nakia decides to confront Eric, while Shuri uses her vibranium pistol to try to neutralize the threat. When the Black Panther sees his sister about to eliminate it, he uses the power of his suit to throw everyone and runs towards her cousin and through him. When they fall on the tracks of a train, T'Challa asks his sister to run the train until the stabilizers deactivate the vibranium suit. This way Eric will be unprotected. Meanwhile, on the surface, the warriors surround the king's garrison and force them to surrender. Then the warriors of the Jabari tribe appeared and attack everyone who opposes T'Challa. Ross was able to destroy the ships and prevent the vibranium from leaving the frontier before invading the laboratory. During the fight, T'Challa was on the verge of defeat, but he takes advantage of the situation when the stabilizers are on to take the dagger out of his cousin's hands and pierce his chest. In the last minutes of his life, Eric asks to see the sunset because his father always tells him that the sunset in Wakanda is the most beautiful of all. T'Challa took him to the top of the mountain and granted his cousin his last wish. After re-establishing his place on the throne, the king thanks Nakia for being loyal to his family. He asks her to stay with him in Wakanda and assures her that he will help her achieve her goal. After several days, T'Challa traveled to Auckland with Shuri and told her that he had bought the building where his uncle had died, and the buildings around it to create the first Wakandanian Global Awareness Center. Nakia will be the supervisor, while Shuri will lead the scientific and information exchange. And you guys, do you think T'Challa made the right decision when he decided to use technology for the benefit of humanity, or that it would be a big danger to the world? And what will be the fate of the Black Panther after destroying all the Heartgrass? So don't forget to leave us your opinion in the comments below, and if you liked the video, like it and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.